So, hello everybody. As already Sam spoiled a little bit about this application, me and Savin, we are working for Vadis, so we have the clients here, and so the application it's being developed together with the European Commission, and it's actually being used by the European Commission. So we will talk a little bit what it's about, what it's doing, how it's actually used by them, and a little bit also about the technical process, let's say the process that they have to actually approve the projects that they were working on. We will see some examples about the usage of the application, a little bit technical, say about the components, how the application is organized, how it works internally, just a little bit, and a little bit of look and feel, just to see like some screenshots and stuff like that. Well, first of all, what it's all about. So it's basically a tool that the European Commission is using to, let's say, very roughly, to save money. So it's about trying to spot the frauds and to detect projects which can actually be risky for investment. So it's based around a project that Vadis developed since now a few years. And has been customized which is called Ghent, which has been customized for the European Commission, and we name it Arachne, as they think they named Arachne. And it's actually based on data coming from the European Commission, which is enriched with public available data, and is processed by Vadis. So basically, we get all this data from the European Commission. We let's say enrich it with publicly available data. We crunch everything and we produce a database, and then this database is actually sent to them and used to actually feed the application itself. Yeah, sorry. No, it's okay. It's okay. And so yeah. I was saying, as September 2015 has been used by 21 member states, and it's let's say we are finalizing the final version. So it's right now, like these days, we have the final version, which is going to production in, I think, probably a few months, let's say a couple of months. So core functionalities, for instance. As I said, we upload the data from the member states. So we have these guys in the member states which are using the application, so they send us the data. We recently integrated, let's say, a system that allows the people to just click a button, upload some files. All these files are validated against XSD and are sent to Vadis, which is also then processing them and then, as I said, enriching. And so the idea is to produce a set of risk indicators and a set of alerts based on the data that we received from the European Commission and that from the external data. As Sam said, we can really, like, how can I say, dig into a single company, see how many people are working there, who's working there, who's connected, what's the risk of a single, let's say, what's the risk of a company to be, let's say, to go bankrupt, for instance, or for, being involved in legal problems and stuff like that, also about people, of course. So on top of that, we have classical data reporting, printable stuff. We have a case management where people can actually create their own portfolio of cases. So imagine that in an office you have people working on a case. They create a case. They can share the information about the case with other colleagues. They can add comments, links, stuff like that. So, and everything is integrated inside the platform. It's we will see after. It's a Windows application running on let's say kind of an old technology, but it's still quite valid. And so let's say, how is the tool actually used by the European Commission? So what they do, they use the tool to investigate before deciding if it's worth investing in a project, let's say, right? So they have this project and they want to do it, and they want to hire some companies to do it, and they want to check what is the risk of doing this project. So this is in the picture you can see this is the process that the European Commission is using to validate actually let's say, to follow the project. And Arachne is actually used in the full chain, let's say, in the full process. So what we do exactly? Let's say we calculate the risk about, for instance, if the project is carried correctly, like it's the money spent in a right way. So, or for instance, if the company which are selected to do the job are selected in a proper way, following the laws and etc. If there are no conflict of interest among people or companies involved in the project itself. And then we have a set of risk indicators which are basically telling how good the company is doing the job, like if it's respecting the environment, if it's contributing in the urban development and stuff like that. Yeah, an example like admissibility. The language here is a little bit technical. It's let's say it's very European Commission stuff. Let's say so. Yeah. Let's say in this case, this is the pre-selection process. So in this case, the application has spotted, let's say, a possible risk due to a company that's been already involved in a case of past bribery in public tenders. So it means that the user, so the user of the application has received an alert, so which is basically a red light on the screen, and he decided to go to it and to check what is exactly happening. And he found that this article, this is coming from Work Compliance, it's an external data provider. And so we know that basically the user can see that the company is actually already involved in a case. And here we have all the details, like really, let's say, complete details about what exactly happened with names, people involved in the case, and etc. So you can really go into it and check what's exactly happening. That's another case, conflict of interest. So the application, it's in this case raised a warning about a possible case of conflict of interest. And with this graph, we can see that there are people connected through external companies, through companies in other countries. Especially, this is good because, for instance, the application can find people involved in companies even if companies are outside the state. So even if you have a company in another state, the application can detect that. Something that normally is not possible with local data. Like if you work in Belgium, you cannot spot if somebody is working in a Belgian company or in a company in Luxembourg at the same time. So in this graph, you can see that person 1, for instance, it's connected to person 2 and through the company H, which is located in another country. So this raises, of course, an alert. And the guys on the European Commission, they will just go there and check if everything it's regular and it's done according to the law. Another thing, yeah, this is the main feature of the application. This is the dashboard, what we call the dashboard, and those are the alerts actually. So the green lights, the yellow lights, the green one, which are there are some, are basically telling the user there is something fishy, there is something that's not going let's say in the right direction. So we have categories on top of the screen, and there are hundreds of risk indicators in the application. We group the risk indicators in categories, and we let's say assign a score to every risk, and we summarize the score in an overall score. We will see after what they are doing, but this is basically the first thing that you see when you launch the application. So from here, when you see a red spot, you basically want to start digging there. So what they can do, they can right-click on the let's say on the red thing and try to navigate through the data, check people involved in this specific project, check companies involved, find what is the problem about. Okay, another example, for instance, so about risk indicators. Okay, imagine that you have expenses, you receive expenses from a company which is working on a project, and all the expenses have exactly rounded amount. So this is one of the things that, let's say, we can detect, or there are numbers which are recurring always, continuously. So this is these are things which are actually triggering the alerts. And, or for instance, like, the cost of a project versus the urban development, or the cost, for instance, of a road compared to the length of the road. So if you pay like 5 million for a road and it's only half of a kilometer, so maybe you have to ask some questions to somebody. Okay, concentration, that's another one. It's more or less the same. So you have beneficiaries involved in multiple projects, or project partners which are like recurring. So if you always say see the same people over and over, maybe there is something like you want to check. Okay, reputation. Okay, but this is a company then, let's say that this is more about links between people and beneficiaries and suppliers. So if you have a project where you see let's say companies which are beneficiaries and there are connection with suppliers, that is maybe something that you want also to check, or maybe companies which are involved in cases of bankruptcies, or people which are publicly exposed. So all these things are triggering alerts, and you want to check them. Yeah, of course, also sanction list, so people which have actually pending trials. Okay, a few words about the application architecture, so how it works. As I said before, the data processing is done in Vadis. So we have our own infrastructure, we have our own cloud, which is processing the data. So we receive the data from the European Commission, we get the data from external providers, mostly from Bureau van Dijk, and basically we produce this very large database, which can something like around 1.5 terabytes now. The database itself is then connected to the application, and basically the application itself, so the client itself, it's basically a browser for the data itself. So it's SQL Server 2012, yes. And the client itself is written in C#. We are using .NET 4, maybe 4.5. It's a classic WCF SOAP web service. And we have third-party components such as Telerik and GoDiagram, maybe you heard about them. And then we have, let's say, a set of web services which are actually transferring the data between Vadis and the European Commission. And, well, basically, we have synchronization procedures and stuff like that. So, but the idea is basically that they have, we produce the data and they browse the data through the application. It's a very classic Windows application. So some screenshots. I don't know if you can really see that. This is an affinity graph, which is actually affinity graph of our boss and the company. And from here you can see that he's like right there, Claude, and you can see that it's connected with other companies. So, and this is basically tells you relationship between people through different companies. So with that you can go through and like see what is doing, like which company is investing on Vadis, which companies he is investing into is related to, or other companies, subsidiaries, and stuff like that. So everything which is related to him and his network. This is basically the networking part that Sam was talking about. This is the dashboard. Let's say we have, this is real data, so we censor the data because we cannot show it actually. So from here you can really dig into the information, the alerts. You can actually expand the categories on top, like if you want to see, there are basically hundreds of risk indicators. So you imagine that there are hundreds of these slides, and you can filter information from here. You can basically create reports. You can print stuff and stuff like that. So it's really the center of the application. Oh yeah, this is the history. So this is a new feature that we added that's still not being, it's being tested actually. So from here we can basically like check the status, let's say check the history about the risk of a specific, this is a project, yeah, about a specific project. We have, say different indicators there, which are the overall, the eligibility, the concentration, etc. So basically what we do, we save information about the calculation that we do. As I said, we calculate continuously the risk. So every week now, we run our script, we generate a new database, and basically we keep track of everything that happened in the past. This is a new thing because before it was not the case. Now we can basically save this thing and go back, and like the user can browse in the past and see what happened at a certain point on time. Okay, so this is the link to the brochure that I used to do the slides. So this is public, has been done by the guys there. You can Google for Arachne on Google. It will be probably the first or the second link that you found. From here you can have more information, and you can also check what it's all about, and etc. If you have questions, yeah, please.
You mentioned using the SQL database. Why didn't you use Neo4j or Sparkle database?
That's actually a very good question. Is what we are doing in the future. So the idea is to integrate Neo4j to all the graph parts. The thing that, let's say, the sensation that I have is that the database is too big to actually work well with Neo4j, especially because we are doing some kind of search, text search, and let's say for the graph part is good. So if we want to do like a shortest path and stuff like that, yeah, it works. For like searching for companies by string or stuff like that, I'm not sure it's going to be more performant than SQL Server, but actually we are like investigating.
I used to work in a company which was mixing the Elasticsearch with Sparkle, which gives you both things. But okay,
yeah.
We can discuss.
Yeah, that's also one of the things we could investigate. It's also a fact that we have to deal with the infrastructure that the client is using. So we cannot just go there and install Spark SQL, But that was one of the ideas. We have a small room in our company where some PCs are sitting there, and we have a small cluster. We are playing with that. We have of course Spark SQL, etc., Linux, etc. So that's one of the things we want to do in the future. Consider that this application has been developed since 2008, I think. So at that time, it was really like at the beginning. So the technologies were what they were, and now it's fortunately we have much better stuff. But we are improving. Other questions? Yeah, please.
You mentioned you had a large number of users and testers. How many? Do you have any idea how many are actually using this already to actually have actual fraud cases?
I think you can ask the guys there. No, the real number, I don't know. I mean, maybe something like 50 users or something like that. That actually not so many which are really active. So more. It says more.
We have about 1,000 users.
Yeah, but active.
And well, about 200, not at the same time. But
Yeah, okay. Not at the same time. Okay, 200 users using the application. Right.
And do you have any big cases that you found?
Well, for the moment.
That's confidential.
Why is that confidential? Isn't that open data, no? Like
Because
Panama Papers? No?
But you
See, yeah, actually it's under investigation.
We need to hack it.
we are.
So you found something?
I think just to I'm on television now. Just to say that we are still in test phase. So it's not really in production. We hope to be in production in September. But the users actually can already seek for irregularities and fraud. And what we see is, because member states are obliged to notify to the anti-fraud office of the Commission when they find cases of fraud and irregularities. Sorry. So what we see is, since the use of Arachne, that the number of notifications has significantly increased. Now, we are going to do a little bit of research on that, but you see a correlation between the use and the notifications, so that actually confirms our impression that it's working very well.
And are EU countries obliged to share this data? I mean, which form you receive the data from the states? What kind of?
Which form of? Which form?
I'm not talking about CSV format. Just what is they are obliged legally to provide to EU as a sort of data sets? I mean, what sort of thing? How you find who works for whom and who works in which company?
That's actually external data. This is coming from the external data. We have a database which is basically containing millions of companies and millions of people and connection between them. Hundreds of millions, yeah, sorry. And And no, under some million. But yeah, so and then we have the data coming from the European Commission about the projects and then what they are doing. So then this is publicly available data. And so who's working in which companies? This is public. As long as together with the balance sheets and stuff like that, it's everything public. You can check on the internet about this.
Actually, we work on the basis of what we call internal data. That's data coming from the member states who are implementing projects for the Commission. And external data, that's Bureau van Dijk and World Compliance, where you have 194 million companies across the world. Now what we do is when a beneficiary's company name, then we can link it to Van Dijk or not. And on that basis, we gather and match internal and external. The member states are not obliged to use this. We developed this completely paid by the Commission. We're giving it to them for free. They are, in fact, obliged to send us data. That's all regulated. It wouldn't be the Commission if there was no regulation, of course. But we of course try to invite them to use it on a day-to-day basis in the management verification, so that we can make sure that the money is correctly spent.
Yeah, please. So, do you actually plan to open up the results of the calculations to the public? Can we see if a company is going to be bankrupt or has a high risk of bankrupt?
That data is public. That's Bureau van Dijk. So if you go to the National Bank in Belgium, you can get a set of accounts for any company. So that's clearly public. But of course, the data that we process, the internal and the external data, is personal data. So we have a data protection issue in just exposing it to everybody. So, and trust me, you need a lot of stamps on your passport before you pass the data protection test and regulation. So it's quite tough. Even in Belgium, you see that certain data cannot be processed simply because of data protection issues. So,
but the open data that you receive, you could say we pay you to integrate it and to improve the data. So the results should also be open. If I link back to the previous
the results are open, but they're owned by a commercial company, Bureau van Dijk. So if we open the data for the whole world, we're going to have a contractual problem with Bureau van Dijk, because they say, no, it's only for use by the Commission, and you cannot, we cannot just publish everything in a readable format, because then their business, well, they wouldn't have any business anymore. You can imagine. Even the number of downloads, how is it, downloads that you do in a month is regulated. It's capped.
So what they actually do, this company, what it actually is doing is basically gathering data around the world, around the internet, putting it together in a database, and then it's selling the database. So it's open data, but it's also filtered, organized correctly. It's a very large database containing publicly available information, but you have to source it. So what they are doing, their business is actually sourcing the data and put it inside the database. It's selling to us, to them actually. And then, we just use it. So resharing is not, possible, because it's a violation of the copyright, basically, even if it's public, but it's coming from the database. That's it.
Yeah.
How do you guard quality? In the sense, you could have people with duplicate names or companies with duplicate names.
There you go.
People could use a contract for random reasons, maybe they don't understand. Is there a way for people to check whether they're wrongly represented in your data set, or for companies to check and to fix the data?
So there are a lot of quality checks all around the process, of the data process, and there are of course checks about duplicates on data, and so the duplicates are removed from the data, so to avoid having them, and to ensure the uniqueness of the records, so of the entities.
But if you have wrong data in your database, and somebody loses a contract, I'm assuming he knows why he loses a contract, why he wasn't selected. Can he then go?
Yeah, there are reports about the rejection. So the reports are sent to the European Commission, and they can check if contracts are removed or processed.
And you have a procedure in place for people to complain about their representation in your data set?
That's a question more for us. Let me assure you that there's no automated decisions.
Yeah.
So it's not because you have a link somewhere that this is out. So we have a charter as well with the member states where we say you have to investigate, you have to inquire to the contractor, to the beneficiary, is it really you? And if it's not you, then tell us, we'll break the link. There's a procedure in place which is a commission governed procedure. So this is if you look at public access to documents on the internet, it will immediately direct you to a website, and it's the Commission's General Secretariat that deals with requests. Send them to us, and we'll then say which data we have in our databases that is personal for you, or what kind of processing we do. So this is, again, I was talking about stamps on your passport. You need them.
And I think we also included a mechanism of scoring, so we try to predict what the risk is of that someone was involved in fraud and in crimes and so on. So, and depending on the quality of the matching, we give it a specific score. So it depends on if we found the guy only with his name, or also with his birthday, with his address, depending on the number of information that could be matched, we give a higher or lower score. So it helps already people to judge if it's reliable or not.
I have a question related to actually also the validation of data, but mainly because the application, the start of the build actually was many years ago. But meanwhile, you have many more data. For example, data about leaks and Panama is one example, which is not validated data, but which might be interested just to give a score on how likely is fraud in the game here. Is there a vision to extend the data, to enlarge the database with not validated data?
That is a very sensitive topic, because we also have a list on negative press, negative media. Now the data protection supervisor, which is an office dealing only with personal data issues, they don't have any problems with PEP lists, politically exposed persons. That's something all of us have to declare. When you open a bank account, you have to sign that you're either you are or you're not a politically exposed person. So those lists, sanction lists, enforcement lists, they don't have any issue because that comes from reliable sources. But for the media and the negative media, that's a very hot topic, and we still haven't fully dealt with this. Hopefully by the end of the month, this will be behind us, but until then, there's no such thing. And especially, the data protection supervisor is very concerned with the quality of that data, because the newspapers today, today you're on the first page, and tomorrow there's a rectification on page 16 in a corner that nobody reads. So what we try to do, of course, is we try to respect the individuals. So we're not going to publish anything where we're not really certain, or that it can be evaluated in the right perspective.
Do you have any idea how many false negatives you have, and has the user any way of feeding that back into the system so you can basically learn to change your rules, basically?
Yeah.
Do you do any learning on that, machine learning or something like that?
We don't have any data on this, on false negatives, but we do have a procedure in place that says, like, for instance, what the gentleman there said, there's a link, and then it doesn't turn, well, John Smith. You can imagine there's more than one cow called John Smith. If you see that it's not the John Smith you're looking for, member states can inform us, and then we'll break the link. Well, we'll ask parties to break the link, and the next one, this indicator is set at green.
Maybe room for one last question, please.
Still, you have really a lot of parameters. So and it's related to his question. I don't see how you can calibrate. You have really so many parameters. I don't see how you can calibrate this very well. And if you not use some sort of learning algorithm, how can you improve upon your calibration, depending on new data and on testing?
But the alerts have been defined together with the European Commission, so the definition of them are very strict, So I don't really.
Well, for example, there is some predictive parts in the model.
Yeah.
So you need to calibrate it. So you need to set some parameters and so on. So if you have so many parameters, you have a high dimension. So you really need huge amounts of data to do this very well. It's something.
So yeah, we have a huge amount of data. So we are using the public source. So the external source we were talking about. And there are really a lot of companies and a lot of financial information, so we can build models and validate the models on the part we were using as. So we can divide the companies in train parts and test part, and we validate, of course, and we backtest the models afterwards. So we can verify all along the time if the results are still.
Yes, but it's for the backtesting. If it will only be in some couple of years that you will be able to tell.
No, we still receive results about new bankrupt companies, so we can still verify if the scores are still valid.
And what is the power currently of the model?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers here, but it's quite satisfying.
Maybe for it we can continue on that topic.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Welcome.